Skyrim's civil war is a key part of the game. As you traverse the land, citizens will regularly express their thoughts on the volatile political situation their home is experiencing. The Dragonborn themselves has the chance to join either side, the Stormcloaks or the Empire, deciding who will rule over Skyrim in the coming days. We are rapidly approaching the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim's launch, and yet the debate of who to join the game's civil war still rages on. Many have made their camps and will defend their position loudly whenever the topic comes up. And so I too have decided to jump on the defensive. Although I won't just be claiming that my side is right and the other is wrong. Instead, I will be defending the Empire today, and then there will be another video uploaded tomorrow which will defend the Stormcloaks. If you want to get a well-rounded look at the Civil War, then I highly recommend making sure to watch both videos before deciding if any of my arguments are the be-all and end-all. In order to get a real understanding of the issue, I jumped into Skyrim and spent the best part of a week playing through both sides of the Civil War, interviewing the citizens of the land, and analysing firsthand everything that was going on. That's right, we're going with first-hand research here. No half quotes of what I thought someone may have said and half remembered. Nope, when I'm making my points, I'll be showing you the proof taken from the game itself. And with this being such a well-researched and in-depth look at the Civil War, I've also decided to split my arguments into two highly intelligently named segments, Empire Good and Stormcloaks Bad. So, let's jump into the first of those. The Empire and its army, the Imperial Legion, has been ruling over Skyrim for hundreds of years, but following the events of the Great War, its control over the region has been called into question.
Untold numbers of Nords died defending the Empire against the Dominion. And for what? Skyrim being sold to the Thalmor so the Emperor could keep his throne.
This is in reference to the White Gold Concordant, a treaty the Emperor agreed to sign in order to end the war against the Thalmor, the ruling body of the Aldmeri Dominion.
We're the ruling body of the Aldmeri Dominion, saviours of Myr, victors of the Great War. The Empire exists because we allow it to exist, and I'm here to make sure the Jarl of Markarth remembers that.
And if that clip wasn't clear enough, the Thalmor are the absolute worst. They're racial supremacists who want to rule over everything and see the other races as inferior beings. No matter which side you're on, they're the true villains, and ending the war with them was met with mixed reactions.
They started the Great War, nearly destroyed the Imperial city. Then the Emperor took the coward's way out and surrendered.
Despite this being a clear negative reaction to the Empire surrendering, it also can be viewed as a positive. The Empire fought hard against the Dominion, but was unwilling to sacrifice everything just to keep fighting a losing battle. By ending the war, the Emperor saved hundreds, perhaps thousands of lives. Its citizens were able to rebuild their homes, and soldiers returned to their families. The threat of the Thalmor was still out there, but it had stopped pushing forward, for now. By agreeing to some of the Thalmor's demands, the Empire was able to stop the possibility of complete Dominion rule and prevent more bloodshed.
If he hadn't signed the peace treaty with the Thalmor, they would have destroyed the Empire. Then where would Skyrim be?
While the terms of the treaty were by no means ideal, the alternative of possibly losing the war would have been far worse. The Emperor's decision to take the diplomatic solution is not viewed favourably by all, but it shows the desire to save the lives of common citizens and maintain order, something which is of a great deal of importance to those simply wishing to live their lives in peace.
Our mission is to serve the Emperor, uphold the law, and protect the citizenry.
Agreeing to have peace with the Thalmor is something which is up for debate as to whether it's a good or bad thing. Some people will say that the Imperial Legion should have kept fighting in order to win the war, but that's a what-if scenario. By taking peace, the Empire avoided the worst-case scenario and kept the Empire of Talos alive. Yeah, that's right, the Empire of Talos. That guy/god the Thalmor outlawing. Quick history lesson for y'all. The Empire was founded by a man named Tiber Septim, who united all of Tamriel and ushered in the Third Era. The Septim bloodline then ruled over the Empire until the Oblivion Crisis, in which Errol Septim VII was assassinated and Martin Septim died fighting Merus and Aegon, because that's just how the Septims roll. When it comes to the time in which Skyrim is set, the Empire is ruled over by Titus Mede II, not a descendant of Talos, but still one keeping his empire alive. While the Stormcloaks will say they are fighting for Talos, it cannot be overlooked they are fighting against the very empire he constructed in the first place. The actions of Tiber Septim live on through the continued existence of his empire. And while the terms of the White Gold Concordant did force the Empire to publicly claim that the worship of Talos as one of the 9 divines was banned, it was never truly enforced in Skyrim, until Ulfric Stormcloak began protesting about it.
The Emperor was forced by the Thalmor to outlaw Talos worship. We didn't pay much attention to it when I was a boy. Everyone still had their little shrine to Talos. But then, Ulfric and his Sons of Skyrim started agitating about it. And sure enough, the Emperor had to crack down.
And while the Imperial Legion does enforce the laws the Thalmor forced them to agree to, they are by no means on friendly terms with that faction.
What the rebels like to forget is that the Empire is what's keeping the Dominion out of Skyrim.
The threat of the Thalmor is the greater issue for the Empire. The concept of a united Empire bringing the fight back to the Thalmor is by far the greatest positive in favour of the Imperial Legion, and while not stated publicly, you can easily infer from talking with those who support the Legion that they are planning to fight against the Thalmor again once they've regained their strength.
I suspect all of Tamriel will again be called to arms in the not-too-distant future.
What I'm not so sure about is the peace we've made with the Thalmor. But we'll keep that between the two of us, alright?
And if the Stormcloaks win the Civil War, General Tullius will claim it's exactly what the Thalmor wanted.
You realize this is exactly what they wanted.
What who wanted?
The Thalmor. They stirred up trouble here. Forced us to divert needed resources and throw away good soldiers, quelling this rebellion.
If the Imperial Legion can quickly quash the Stormcloak Rebellion, start bolstering its ranks with strong Nord warriors, and regain the strength it once had, then it will prove to be the best chance for overthrowing the Thalmor and preventing the Dominion from taking control of all of Tamriel. I'd say this is by far the strongest argument when it comes to siding with the Empire. But it's often not a case of siding with the Legion, sometimes it's more of a case of siding against the Stormcloaks. We're going to start with the most commonly heard criticism of Ulfric and his Stormcloaks: racism.
You one of those Skyrim for the Nords types? Is that so? You ought to join the Stormcloaks, if you haven't already. Seems to me they're a bunch of narrow-minded bigots, just like you.
There's multiple examples of the Stormcloaks, citizens of Windhelm, and Ulfric himself treating Nords as better than all the other races, and especially being cruel to the races of Mer. For the citizens of Windhelm, there's this example.
You come here where you're not wanted. You eat our food, you pollute our city with your stink, and you refuse to help the Stormcloaks.
But we haven't taken a side because it's not our fight.
Hey, maybe the reason these Greyskins don't help in the war is because they're Imperial spies.
Imperial spies? You can't be serious.
Maybe we'll pay you a visit tonight, little spy. We got ways of finding out what you really are.
And the Grey Quarter itself associates Ulfric personally with the racists.
Windhelm is divided into 4 quarters. The Grey Quarter is the one that's home to all the city's dark elves. If it looks to you like an impoverished slum, that's because it is. Ulfric prefers that we live in squalor. He has nothing but disdain for anyone who isn't a Nord. He tolerates us, but that's the extent of his hospitality.
And it's not just for Dunmer. Argonians reportedly suffer similar treatment.
And it isn't just the Dark Elves they hate. They make a target of the Argonians as well.
And then there's also the treatment of the Khajiit.
So many refuse to talk to us. They call us thieves and smugglers. I am glad to see that you are not such a one. Mostly, it is the Nords. They do not like outsiders in their land. And so we are forbidden to enter their cities.
Although this one isn't limited strictly to the Stormcloaks, more of a general discrimination that's happening. This does show that the Stormcloaks certainly aren't alone in being racist, but they still manage to stand out from the crowd as the most open and blatantly discriminatory towards those who aren't Nords. But of course, this isn't the only negative that can be attributed to the Stormcloak Rebellion. let's talk about the idea that they're fighting for the Freedom of Skyrim. This is one that has a balance of good and bad to it. You could say that the Stormcloaks are fighting for freedom of religion, which is certainly admirable and something I'll cover in tomorrow's video. But the term freedom on its own is incredibly vague, and the actual meaning changes depending on who's saying it and who's hearing it.
You know, you should go to Windhelm and join the fight to free Skyrim.
The problem I have here is that not being under the rule of the Empire's laws is not exactly the same as being free, as it's instead changing the Emperor from being in charge to Ulfric being in charge. While this may well be something which many Stormcloaks prefer, it always bugs me when a change in who's in charge is phrased as freedom. And Ulfric has a very might is right style of leadership, which not everyone may desire from their ruler.
I killed Torek to prove our wretched condition. How is the High King supposed to be the defender of Skyrim if he can't even defend himself?
Not only is he focusing on using violence to take power, but it was the first option he went for, as we can learn by talking to the court wizard of the High King that Ulfric killed.
If Ulfric had asked Toreg directly to stand up, to declare independence, Toreg might have done it.
The Stormcloak way is to create a show of power and dominate or destroy those in their way. You're either with them or against them, and Ulfric is well aware of this.
It is for these reasons that I cannot accept the mantle of High King. Not until the moot declares that title should adorn my shoulders will I accept it.
Nice touch about the High King.
Thank you. I thought so too.
It's a foregone conclusion, you know.
Oh, I know.
Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak has a great desire for power. He has every intention to become the High King, and this motive is clear to many.
Because that's what traitorous cowards do when they desire power. Ulfric coveted the High King's throne. He thought he deserved it more than Toreg.
Do you think Ulfric really cares about Skyrim's independence, or the welfare of its people? I promise you, he doesn't.
To many, the shouts of freeing Skyrim from its oppressors are a blatant smokescreen to mask Ulfric's true goals, and the campaign to restore Talos worship is simply a popular cause which he is ramping up in order to gain more followers.
People are rightly stirred up about the damn Thalmor being allowed to roam around arresting people, just for worshipping Talos. But was it worth tearing Skyrim apart and maybe destroying the Empire? No. Ulfric will have a lot to answer for in the end.
The only person who truly knows what Ulfric's motives are would be Ulfric though. For everyone else in Tamriel, they get to choose how they feel about him for themselves. And one faction who view Ulfric in a positive light is the Thalmor. During the course of Skyrim's main quest, the player character infiltrates the Thalmor embassy and can find a book called Thalmor Dossier Ulfric Stormcloak, which reads as follows. Status: Asset, Uncooperative, Dormant, Emissary level approval. Description: Jarl of Windhelm, leader of Stormcloak Rebellion, Imperial Legion veteran. Ulfric first came to our attention during the First War against the Empire, when he was taken as a prisoner of war during the campaign for the White Gold Tower. Under interrogation, we learned of his potential value, son of the Jarl of Windhelm, and he was assigned as an asset to the interrogator, who is now First Emissary Elenwen. He was made to believe information obtained during his interrogation was crucial in the capture of the Imperial city. The city had in fact fallen before he had broken, and then allowed to escape. After the war, contact was established and he has proven his worth as an asset. The so-called Markarth incident was particularly valuable from the point of view of our strategic goals in Skyrim, although it resulted in Ulfric becoming generally uncooperative to direct contact. Operational notes. Direct contact remains a possibility, under extreme circumstances, but in general the asset should be considered dormant. As long as the Civil War proceeds in its current indecisive fashion, we should remain hands-off. The incident at Helgen is an example where an exception had to be made. Obviously, Ulfric's death would have dramatically increased the chance of an Imperial victory, and thus harmed our overall position in Skyrim. Note: the coincidental intervention of a dragon at Helgen is still under scrutiny. The obvious conclusion is that whoever is behind the dragons also has an interest in the continuation of the war, but we should not assume, therefore, that their goals align with our own. A Stormcloak victory is also to be avoided, however, so even indirect aid to the Stormcloaks must be carefully managed. This is by far the biggest proof against Ulfric being a good individual, as he has worked for the Thalmor, albeit after being subject to possible torture and brainwashing from them. The dossier isn't too clear on what Ulfric has or has not done for the Thalmor, but the reference to direct contact and he has proved his worth as an asset clearly show that Ulfric has been helping the Eldmeri Dominion. To which degree he's doing this intentionally can be debated, but it is beyond clear that the Stormcloak Rebellion has been of great benefit to the true villains of Tamriel. You may have noticed that the section criticising the Stormcloaks was far longer than the part complimenting the Imperial Legion. And that's because, when it comes to the Civil War in Skyrim, it's less a choice of picking the good guys, and more a case of taking the lesser of two evils. And in this video, it is clear that the Legion is the lesser evil. But this is only one side of a story. This time tomorrow, I will be releasing In Defense of the Stormcloaks, a video where I basically just do the flip of this, talking over why the Legion isn't so squeaky clean, and highlighting the positive side of the Stormcloak Rebellion.